There are a great many things in this world that I know very, very little about. When that happens, and it is very rare, I suppose, but when that happens, I like to bring on someone who actually knows something about them to tell me about them and instruct me, basically give me a 1 hour crash course on whatever that particular topic is. Last month, it was about a month ago, something like that, I had one of the folks from Pogo Linux, who's one of the show sponsors, and because they're one of the show sponsors, I can demand that they do things for me. I had one of them come on and tell me all about storage, software-defined storage, big enterprise-grade storage stuff that I don't normally do. I need storage, but I know tremendously little about storage. So I had him come on and he kind of schooled me on everything, which was delightful. We talked about ZFS and all sorts of other things that I just simply don't know. One of the other things I don't really know about much is VR. And I know that sounds weird, but I legitimately know very little about VR, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So I've got someone from Pogo Linux coming on again to tell me all about that side of things, about building systems for development of VR and platform support and all these other things. So we're going to get into that very momentarily. But first, I would like to talk about the other sponsor of this show, System 76. And we've been talking a lot about the desktop that I'm currently using to stream this show. But what we haven't been talking about is the fact that they've got a sale going on right now. And that sale applies very nicely to some of their laptops, including their big high-end Bonobo and Servo laptops. They can get like a couple $100 off on right now, which is pretty delightfully tasty. I've personally tested out the Galago Pro and the Servo Workstation and the Oryx Pro. They're all incredible laptops. I haven't had the good fortune to test out the Kudu or the Lemur or the but I've heard good things as well. But I can personally vouch for the Galago, the Servo, and the Oryx as being truly beefy laptops, especially that Galago. It may not be a crazy, beefy to all-end laptops. It doesn't have, built-in NVIDIA graphics cards and all that, but it's very portable, and the lines on it are just so friggin' sleek. And it's like $70 off right now, which is, delightful all by itself. Okay. Now, let's talk about VR. Let's bring on the one, the only, the incomparable Chris Stevenson, operations manager. Was that your title?
That you got it.
It's awesome. I don't remember most things, so that's pretty delightful. All right, I should preface all this so you know where I'm coming from here. I know tremendously little about everything in the VR space, and the reason for that is the one time that I put VR goggles on my face, it made me feel like I was on board a ship in a sea that was determined to make me yak. I immediately got green and queasy. I am a very old man when it comes to this sort of thing. VR was not built for me. I think the technology is cool, but it makes me want to throw up because I just get motion sickness so easy. So let's get into this. I was going through Pogo's website, and Pogo literally has an entire section here. I'll bring this up so people can see it here, dedicated to virtual reality development workstations and some seriously beefy rigs over there. What all does that entail? Like, if you're putting together a machine to do virtual reality development, what do you actually have to be thinking about?
Well, it really depends on what you're going to be developing, right? So if you're developing for the video game market or for a more commercialized application, right?
Okay.
When it comes to a consumer, you can typically use, mid-range to high-end gaming grade components, right? And you can get a headset, you can build the computer up, and then you can play whatever VR experiences are out there. When it comes to on the development side, it's going to be you're going to require a little bit more high-end hardware because you're actually going to be developing the content and creating it as you go. You're not just trying to render it and play it.
What's the difference between that? Like, what would be like if you were developing it and you want a little bit more high-end? What is that? What does that look like?
Well, our high-end line that we've got is typically going to be anything from like the high-end Core i7 up to a dual Xeon. So we've got one of our machines that's a dual Xeon workstation, and it really depends. It depends on what you're doing with it, right? So the thing about the current gen GPUs is they're not only good just for graphics, they're good for computation. And in fact, so much so that the top end GeForce 10 series cards are sold out almost everywhere right now because of the Ethereum mining guys. They're out there buying these cards left, right, and center. So you can't even get them right now. It's crazy. So when you think of it from that perspective, you can create an application that also does a lot of visualization and whatnot, right? So if you think of companies doing oil and gas, or things where they're trying to, simulate weather patterns or anything like that, right? You can do it in 2D on a screen. Okay, I can see, where these clouds are kind of moving in.
Yeah.
But then you add 3D immersive element to it, and then that simulation becomes that more real, that more realistic, things like that. So there's applications where that additional horsepower on the development side, for the commercial side, you're going to need a lot more juice than what you get on the consumer grade stuff. So
interesting. Is there a lot of actual like industrial sort of VR development going on? Because I mean, really, like from my standpoint, whenever I hear about VR, it's always, Oculus or something like that, or HTC, and it's all about games. So what is exactly happening over on the industrial side?
There's a lot happening. There's a number of different markets that are looking into VR for training and experience, kind of put someone in that experience. Medicine. So there's full programs dedicated to virtual operating rooms. So you can take a doctor and you can teach him.
That sounds like a terrible video game, man.
Pretty boring, right?
Basically Sim Doctor, only in 3D. It sounds horrifying to me.
So there's those. And then there's, let's say you're going to get a house built, right? And so you call your architect and he's got your floor plan and you're like, okay, I have this white drawing or this, blue paper drawing with white, and you've got measurements and you're like, okay, that's the bedroom and that's the bathroom.
So you're talking like a VR walkthrough of a proposed house sort of a deal?
Oh yeah.
That's kind of cool.
So you can actually walk through your own house and go, I don't like that wall right there. I want that wall 3 feet that way. Okay, and then I'm going to actually take my couch and put my couch there and see how your couch fits.
That's kind of neat.
So there's a lot of
architects and builders actually doing that?
They are starting to. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's still an emerging market, but I think we're going to see a lot more of it once the VR headsets become a little bit more mainstream than they are right now. Because when you think about it, we're still kind of in that first gen consumer grade VR type of thing. So the way I like to compare it is, do you remember when we went from standard definition TVs to high def?
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this is the clearest picture I've ever seen. Like you're watching your local newscast and you see like the pores on the guy's face and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Well, then you fast forward geez, how long has it been? 15 years?
Something like that. Yeah.
20 TVs.
Yeah.
And you look at the 4K stuff that's coming out now. Well, you compare that to what we had in the beginning, and early gen HD TV looks terrible. It looks terrible. So think of VR the same way. We are in the first gen of VR, and it's only going to get better as time progresses. And there's a lot of big companies that are putting a lot of development and resources into those products. So I think it's something that's going to be here to stay, and it's going to end up in a lot of living rooms.
Interesting. Well, so okay, so on the VR side of things, so let's put the big beefy development rigs off to the side for a moment. So you're putting the goggles on your head. What sort of goggles are you currently using, or which ones do you think are cool? Because there's a couple of them out there, and I think most people are generally not certain which ones they would even get. Personally, I know they would all make me throw up, but what are the good ones?
Well, so there's a few different options, right? There's, as far as consumer products, there's only a few that are out there right now. Your kind of entry level is going to be the Samsung Gear VR, which is the one that, you take your cell phone, you snap it in, and your cell phone becomes your screen, right?
Now, is that weird to you? Like, so is having a cell phone strapped to your face strange to you? Have you tried that?
I've tried the Gear VR. Yes, I have.
What do you think of it? Like, how has that worked for you? Because I haven't tried that one. That's not the one that made me yak.
It's interesting though, because I've done all the other ones that are out there, which they're an experience on a different level. So coming back and saying, how do you think what do you think of the Gear VR? It's obviously not as good to me as the bigger products that are out there, right? Yeah. So, but if you're interested in VR, if you've got a compatible device, I think there's the Google Daydream and the Samsung Gear VR. Yeah. And so the Samsung one obviously only works with the current Samsung flagship phones, and then the Google one, I think there's think it's got to be Android 7 or above, something like that.
Something. Yeah.
It's like 130 bucks. If you're interested, try it, right? There's some good experiences. There's some fun games out there. It's worth trying to get into it and see if it's for you.
From purely the standpoint, when you tried it, when you had a cell phone 1 inch from your eyeballs, how did that feel? Like for me, like I've never tried it, so I can't speak to it. I don't want to disparage it because it might be the most kick-assiest awesome experience in the world. It just seems so crazy to me to have a cell phone strapped to your face. Like that seems like something your parents would encourage you to not do. Like I remember when I first got my Nintendo or my NES back in 1985, I think 85, 86. I remember I was playing games and I had my face right up to that CRT. And my mom was always yelling at me to get my face away from the television. I was going to go blind. I was going to give me cancer in my brain because I was right there up against it. I don't know if it was going to be cancer, but you know, every mom has told kids to get their face away from the screen. It seems weird that now we have a product that intentionally straps the screen as close to your face as possible. Does that feel weird to have it there?
I don't think so, no, because the immersion that you get from it is kind of mind blowing, right?
Really?
It's fun. Like I said, the stuff that's out there for the cell phones is kind of gimmicky. You know, it's not. I mean, the cell phone doesn't have as much power as a full computer does, right? Yeah. So it's definitely not going to be the same experience. But to understand what VR is, I think that's one of VR's hardest hurdles to overcome right now. Is any other piece of media you can market by saying, you know, you can do a trailer for a movie, right? Be like, wow, check out this movie, explosions, you know, players, J.J. Abrams, all that fun stuff, right? And everyone's like, oh, I want to go see that.
Yeah.
When you take VR footage and you try to show it to someone in a non-VR environment, you're like, oh, that looks kind of shaky, and it's like all, you know, wiggling around. And it's like you can't market it to the same degree. And then, you know, I've had friends that have come over and it's like, hey, have you done VR? No, I never. You know, I'm not really that interested. And then I'm like, okay, we'll try it. And they're like, I'm like, no, try it. They put on the headset, and I can't get them out of the thing. But their first thought was kind of, I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
And then once they do it, they think it's the coolest thing they've ever seen or ever experienced. So that I think is one of the hurdles VR has right now, because and the price point too, right? So like, kind of your next question was which headsets to go with. The two big players right now for the computer powered headsets, it's obviously the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. Yeah. We have both here in the office that we use for testing our development workstations. The green screen behind me is actually what we created on our website. If you look on the blog, there's our mixed reality kind of experience video. That is what we filmed here with our own equipment in mixed reality, which is kind of a cool thing. So what we use here is, actually I got it right here, is we use the Vive. So this is our Vive.
Hey, move it to your right just a little bit. Back to the left. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Nice.
So
interesting.
This is the Vive headset. This is the one that we've used for a lot of our development. So it just, I can't do it with my headphones on here, but you just kind of strap it on like this, you know, and you put on your headphones like this.
Does it have a camera
and
on
then
the front?
Immerse. It does, right here.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yep. That looks so crazy.
Back off here.
That is, it's very like cool sci-fi dystopian future-ish. Like I kind of dig the look of it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I know if I strap it on my head, I'm gonna get motion sickness, but I dig the look of it. It's very, you know, it's not steampunk. It's something else. It's like something you'd expect to see strapped to someone's head in Fifth Element or something. You know what I mean? It's very
exactly.
Yeah.
There's that book. I forget who.
Which of those two would you go with? I mean, if you had to pick one.
Right now, personally, I'd go with the Vive. And the reason I would go with the Vive over the Rift, the Rift was the first one kind of out there. You know, the first one you can get a development kit on and that kind of a thing. The problem with the Rift is they didn't design with controllers and room scale in mind from the get-go. It was just the headset at first, right? So you put this little sensor up on top of your monitor. And then you could move basically left to right, up and down, forward and backwards. So you could basically sit in your chair and kind of move like this.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which, if you've never done it, it's going to be great. And then you get to room scale, where you can actually be on top of a mountain and walk 10 foot by 10 foot inside your living room and experience that mountain and kneel down and bend and you know, get on your hands and knees and look at an object that's in the 3D environment. It changes the dynamic completely. So Vive was the first one to really have room scale out of the box. So that's the one, and controller support out of the box. So actually, these are the controllers. If you haven't seen them before.
Yeah, those are pretty cool looking. Yeah.
So they've got
those
the
are pretty
touchpad,
rad.
trigger, and these two side buttons. So once you get used to the controller scheme, I mean, it's amazing. The experiences you can experience. The best was I put my mom. My mom came down to the office and we put her in a underwater scene where this blue whale comes up and his eyeball is like 6 inches from your face and it is this big. And the sense of scale that VR gives you is just amazing. So,
interesting. There's part of me that thinks that that's the coolest thing in the world, and yet I am still, because I know it's not built for guys that are getting old and can no longer play 3D games. Okay, all right. So the HTC Vive, how much does the Vive cost right now?
I think right now, I think the retail cost it's $800. So it's a little steep. And then you obviously have to have a PC that can really handle. Yeah. You got to have a pretty mid to high end CPU and graphics card in there.
What's kind of the in your mind the sweet spot for the graphics card? Like what would be a good graphics card to have if you want good performance but don't want to be like crazy expensive?
What we typically use and recommend on entry-level development is going to be the GeForce GTX 1070.
Okay.
The 1070 is going to have that good price point if you can find one, unfortunately, right now. It's going to give you plenty of good VR performance, and you're not going to have stuttering in most of your applications. And so you can typically get away with a 1070 and a decent Core i5 to Core i7 processor.
Oh, that's not terrible. That's pretty doable. How much memory do you want in your video card to make it reasonable?
I can't remember what the 1070's got. I think it's got 6 gig on that card.
Yeah.
I think so. So it doesn't need a lot. The key is it's about the rendering frame rate. So the video card has to be able to render both eyes at 75 hertz or above.
Oh.
Otherwise you get stutter and jerkiness, and then it really kind of disconnects you from the experience. So that's why it's so important to, if you're going to do VR, to spend the money to get the products, to get the good products in there.
Interesting. Okay. All right. That's fair. Now, and if you're developing it, obviously, you need more. You need bigger. Do you just put like 2 cards in SLI? Like how do you approach that if you're putting together a development machine for it?
So typically still with development, SLI is one of those technologies that's kind of cool for the consumer. Now, you can buy a video card now, and then when you have a little bit more money and your games aren't running quite as smooth, you can add another one in there. Yeah. The thing though with VR, or not VR, SLI, is that sometimes it creates more problems than it solves. More heat, more power. Yeah. Micro stuttering. There's some other things in there. So from the development side, we typically don't recommend it.
Micro stuttering. What is micro stuttering?
So
I kind of guess it's stuttering a little bit.
Yeah.
But
so micro stuttering is basically both video cards render in what they call alternate frame rendering. So when they're working together in SLI and you've got that little bridge connector, basically one card will render one frame and then the other card will render the next frame. And so they're render to share the load. Now, sometimes with that little bit of a millisecond of delay between the 2 cards and their data syncing up, you can get these little stutters. So your frame rate may be good, but sometimes you'll have a little bit of a disconnect. There's another technology that they do split frame rendering, where the top half of your screen will be rendered by one card and the bottom half will be rendered by another. Now, I'm not really sure. It's been a while since I've really done that, but
interesting.
That's where you can get really bad tearing in between your images where
Right,
there's a
because
disc.
if they're not lining up just right, it would
Exactly.
look funky. It'd be like having
Yeah.
bifocals, but the bifocals are weird.
Exactly.
And stuttering,
Exactly.
and one of them has a time delay.
So for development, what we typically recommend is anything that, let's say you're going to develop on the Unity engine, right, which is one of the most common platforms for doing games or basic applications. Anything that's recommended for Unity is typically going to be recommended for our VR workstations. So that's going to be the NVIDIA Quadro line. AMD's got the Fire Pros. We don't recommend those as much, especially if you're going to be doing development on Linux, because their driver stack's a little bit harder to deal with in Linux. So NVIDIA right now is pretty much the way to go when it comes to anything VR or VR development.
Interesting. You know what? That brings up the Linux topic. If you go, for those watching, if you go to pogolinux.com and you start looking through the machines, they've got like 1.5 billion different machines that you can configure on their website. And one of the things that on all of them is they have an operating system selector with a big gigantic tux next to it, and you can choose like one of like 5 or 6 or whatever different Linux distributions. The VR is kind of the one lone standout. Like it's the one realm. Like if you go down and select the operating system, you can either get Windows or nothing. Currently, what is one up with that? And two, what is the state of kind of VR in the open source operating system realm in the Linuxy world?
That's one of those things that we're really hoping is going to continue to grow once the market adoption, especially in the commercial space, gets better. Steam or the Vive, which is through the Steam platform. If you're a gamer, you're familiar with Steam. That's where you download all your digital games and that kind of a thing. So that is an integral component to the way the Vive operates. Now, Steam has released Steam VR, or Steam is already available for Linux. You can run it on Ubuntu or Fedora, whatever you want to run. But they also have released Steam VR for Linux in beta. So there's a limited number of applications that you can actually run in Steam VR on the Vive right now in Linux, which is awesome. I think that's really cool.
How well does it work? I mean, obviously it's still in beta, but from your guys' testing, how has it been?
It's not bad. We run into a few issues just getting things to run. A lot of application restarts just to kind of get everything rolling. But that's not uncommon for a development package, especially with something that different, right? It's not something that's very common in Linux. So, but once we got it running, the experience was pretty much the same as on the Windows platform. So, nice. Like I said, a limited number of applications that you can do that. But the beauty of that is that if you are going to develop your own application that you want to run open source, you want to deploy it, without having the licensing costs of, the big guy down the street from us here in Redmond, you can do that. And the platform is available and slowly being developed and worked on. Now, on the flip side, on the Oculus Rift side, early on, Oculus announced, we're going to be working on an SDK. We're going to be working on Linux. Yeah. And then I'm thinking I can't remember if it was after the Facebook acquisition.
I think so.
That whole thing kind of went.
Yeah.
And they just said, we are not working on that anymore. We have no plans to work on that. So I think that's a huge detriment to, the open source community. Now, there is another player out there that we're kind of keeping an eye on, and that's OSVR. That's open source VR. So it's an open source hardware platform and software platform geared to open source development.
I haven't seen that
and that is available on Linux and Windows as well.
Interesting.
So
is that how far along is that from what you've seen? Like how is it at a usable state at this point?
You want to repeat that? I lost you there for a second.
Sure. How far along is the OSVR project at this point from what you've seen? Like how far out does it seem like it is before it's really usable?
I know they're definitely making strides on that platform. The big hurdle it's on the developer side of actual content and titles. Because right now we've kind of got this split ecosystem between Oculus Rift and the Vive and more mobile stuff for, Google Daydream, Google Cardboard, and the Gear VR. So it's kind of like, do you remember, was it PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360? We had Blu-ray hitting the market, and then we had, if anyone remembers, HD
DVD. I used to work on HD DVD.
Right? So
yeah,
we're kind of in that space where it's kind of that format war, right? We're trying to see when something's going to become, more unified. There's some developers out there that develop for both equally. The problem is, though, is Rift is very limited in on some of their bigger titles, what they're allowing developers to do, which is really a bummer, right? They're wanting to run their app store and their content, and it's an exclusive title and all this. Well, I mean, that just does nothing but hurt the consumer. It's kind of like that whole Apple ecosystem, right? If you stay in that ecosystem, it works great. As soon as you try to go outside that ecosystem, well,
it's not so great. Yeah,
things start to fall apart. So that's kind of what we're waiting on. I'm sure the OSVR project's going to continue to grow and develop, and we're keeping a close eye on it. We're just really hoping that from the developer side, a lot of that changes to be to everyone in the market.
What do you want to see happen? Like from your standpoint, if there emerges a clear dominant leader in the category, who do you want it to be from your standpoint?
Right now, I mean, I'm really gunning for the Vive. The ease and setup of the Vive has just been top notch. The quality of the titles you can get, the usability of Steam as a platform to develop or to deliver that content, it just makes it so much easier for somebody who may not, want to really spend the time to tweak on it and try to figure it out.
Right.
It just seems better. It's just a more fit and finished product. I mean, they've definitely got a long way to go. They're making some updates to the headband, and they're looking at wireless technology, which is going to be great because you'll get rid of this big cord you have to drag around everywhere. So that's going to be really cool.
I gotta be honest, I kind of like the
next step is they're looking at doing inside out tracking, right? So that's where basically right now, I don't know if I can show you here. I'm gonna move my camera here and kind of show you.
Yeah, go for it.
So in our room here, if you see in the corner of the room there, that little square box there,
what is that?
That is the Vive base station. So if you look, and we've got another one way over in that corner of the room over there. And what those are is that's basically what's required currently to track the headset and the controllers. So you can see there's all these little circular dots, which are actually infrared LEDs. And that's how these two base stations translate where the controllers and headset are in the 3D space, right?
That is intense.
They work great, but it really limits your ability because you have to run these boxes up into the corner of your room. You got to run power to them, and it's just kind of a big pain. But once they get the inside out tracking, where basically they're tracking out from the headset without the need for those boxes, and they get wireless, I mean, we're that much closer to, the holodeck, and, you can go hang out with Riker and Picard and Data and run around and, medieval times on the holodeck.
That needs to happen, or at least the little suites in Quark's bar. So I suppose we probably shouldn't talk too much about those because I don't know if that's particularly safe for work, despite the fact that it was on a primetime show with DS9. This is really interesting to me. I mean, if you've got to set up those boxes, obviously it's not terribly mobile. You can't pick it up and go into the other room with it. You can't bring it over to a friend's house terribly easily without resetting up those boxes, and that kind of does suck. So how far do you have any indication from HTC of how far out that inside out tracking is on the horizon? Did I lose you for a second?
Yeah, I'm losing you there.
Yeah.
Let's see if it comes back here.
How far
indication?
Out? Yeah, how far out?
I don't think they've announced anything specifically at this point. I know I've seen some potential prototypes for new stuff, stuff that's released out there. They're talking about new controllers and that kind of a thing. But I haven't heard anything really specific as to when we're going to see that next gen Vive. I know they're probably working on the Vive 2 or whatever they're going to call it.
Sure, yeah.
And, I've heard rumors of eye tracking built into the headset, so they can actually determine where your eyeballs are looking in the headset and they can track that and then do things with that in the environment. they're working on these hockey pucks, which are basically, if you think of just the top part of this controller piece here, and you can strap them to your ankle, right? So then if you're doing a ninja game or whatever, you can kick and it'll actually know where your legs are.
That's going to be so many broken TVs and windows.
Well, my big excitement for the tracking pucks is I want to be able to put it on my beer, because in VR, you can't see where you set your beer, right? But if you can put this hockey puck on it and have a virtual beer where your beer actually is, and you can grab it, drink your beer, and put it back. Or put it on your dog, right? Let's say your dog's always tripping over you, under your feet in VR. Well, you can have a little virtual dog, and you know where your actual dog is, so you don't kick him as you're trying to do your ninja moves.
I love that we're building what is essentially future Star Trek technology, just so we can more easily find our beer when we've got a headset strapped to our face. That is awesome.
Beer drives everything in this world, doesn't it?
Beer drives tech. That is absolutely ridiculous. This is kind of interesting. So do you ever, so aside from, cool immersive experiences and whatnot, 'cause when I did it, it was, I did like a walk around a room, just kind of demo with the Oculus. Mm-hmm. This was a ways back. Are there any at this point really kick-ass games that you actually play on a regular basis using the VR?
Yeah, so the one that came out recently that's really been taking a lot of my attention is Star Trek Bridge Crew.
That sounds kind of cool.
So it's a 4-player multiplayer title where you take the role of the captain, the helmsman, the tactical officer, and the engineer on the bridge of a starship.
In VR.
And in VR, full multiplayer. And I'm sure you can find a clip to show on that. And basically, it is probably the most comedic thing I've ever done in VR, because everyone's in there, and the captain's flailing his arms about in VR. You've got this little cartoony Star Trek character, and his arms are flailing about, matched with your controllers. So if you point your finger at a guy, your character actually points his finger at whoever he's talking to, and it is just a laugh riot. And you have to actually run the starship. If you're the helmsman, you have to set the course and engage the warp drive. If you're tactical, you have to raise the shields or transfer power. It's if you're engineering, you got to make sure the repair crews are going out. It's a laugh riot. So that's a really fun experience.
That actually does sound kind of rad. I mean that.
It's worth it. It's really worth it.
I'm about as fuddy-duddy old man get off my lawn as you can get when it comes to things like VR. I kind of just want people to hand me a controller with a D-pad. I don't even like anything that has like an analog stick. Like I like a D-pad. I like old school, But if you can put me on the bridge of a starship, now I might need to take some Dramamine just so that I can manage to make this work, because that sounds really worthwhile. Okay, all right. So there's at least one really compelling title. Honestly, that sounds. I'd be willing to pay a significant amount of money to do that all by itself. Can you do you do things like watch movies on it, that sort of thing?
I've played around with it. There's some different movie viewers and stuff you can do. The cool thing you can do it for is any 360 videos, like on YouTube. The ones you can drag around with your mouse.
Yeah.
Those dump right into VR, and you can actually turn and look around the experience. So that's kind of cool.
That's kind of neat.
But there's nothing really out there for really watching movies that I would want to sit in the headset that long to do at this point. It definitely does strain your eyes over time, and that's just because I think the technology is still not as good as it will get.
Well, there's a screen strapped to your face.
Yeah. I mean, what's really cool though is so obviously you wear glasses there. Can you not see far away, or do you have trouble seeing up close?
I am a proper nerd. I can't see diddly squat without my glasses.
Okay. So one of the cool things about VR is they're actually I've seen experiences where they've put people that are is it nearsighted where you can't see far? I always get those two mixed up. Whichever one where you can't see far away. And they're like blind as a bat, after 2 feet in front of them, right? They can't see anything. Well, the cool thing about VR is the headset's right there. So the render distance, your eyes don't have to focus as far as they would in the real world. So you put someone that's almost blind as a bat 2 feet in front of their face, they put the headset on, and then you put them on the top of a mountain. they can see all the way to the horizon clear as day because it's rendering this close to your face. Their eye isn't actually focusing all the way out. And that is one of the really cool things I've seen is people that have really bad vision can put this on, and it's like one of the most mind-blowing experiences they can have because they can actually see.
That is actually kind of cool. I've never thought about it from that point of view. That does make a lot of sense. Like that's really cool. Now that I'm thinking about it, okay, that's cool. All right, now I'm suddenly between that and the Star Trek thing. I'm warming up on this VR thing. All right.
Medical. There's also medical applications. They're using it for therapy. They're using it for helping with fears of heights, fears of spiders, fears of things like that.
So
they can put you in
into
experience.
a VR room and basically a version of arachnophobia where the spiders start attacking you.
They actually have that. There's actually a title out there that's exactly that.
That sounds so horrifying. Have you done it?
I haven't done it. I've seen the videos of it, and
you gotta do it, man. You
got a coworker here who was deathly afraid of spiders, and I tried to put it in it, and he almost threw the headset across the room. He's like, "Nope, not gonna do it."
No. I am scared to death of spiders, man. I am confident they're gonna eat my face. I am confident that all spiders are basically just variations of the face huggers from the Aliens movies. I can't. That literally sounds horrifying. So basically, what you're telling me is VR is both the best and the worst of humanity strapped to your face.
And new titles come out every day that just amaze me that on what people are coming up with. You know, there's some titles that are coming up with that you see come out from overseas, from specific countries that are more of the CD type that you just look at them and you're like,
right.
Oh boy. Oh boy,
the Quarks bar in DS9. Yeah,
exactly.
What did they call those? Was it the pleasure suites? No,
the hollow suites.
Hollow suites. I don't know why I keep wanting to add the word pleasure into that because I guess that's kind of their deal, right? But yeah, I mean, even in the Star Trek universe, they immediately went to that. Like, they're like, that's what this is gonna get used for. Let's go straight there. See, oh man, so much of like when you mentioned Blu-ray and HD DVD, that got determined by, in a large part, the adult industry. They got behind Blu-ray and not HD DVD. A lot of the major web backbones had the same sort of thing. Adult websites cropped up and they kind of drove the traffic, and big ISPs actually formed because they got a major client in major adult sites. Do you anticipate the same sort of thing happening in the VR space where that industry comes along and says, we dub the Oculus the winner, and all of a sudden that becomes the thing?
I mean, that potential's definitely
It's hard
there.
to talk about this, I know, while still being like safe for work and all that, but like it's an industry sort of thing, right? Like,
so yeah, I mean, when you think about it, at the end of the day, the adult film industry does drive the same IT resources as any other large company. Yeah. They're pushing large amounts of data, they're storing large amounts of data, and they're serving that content up to millions of users. So when you think about it in just the raw brass tacks of it, they definitely do drive the tech industry in a lot of ways. And I don't see VR being any different than any of those other, driving factors like HD and things like that. Yeah. So I definitely think that that'll be part of that.
Good
I don't have any specifics other than that.
I don't have any specifics. I don't want you to even give me any specifics because I'm kind of knowing what they have already done with putting spiders strapped to your face. I don't really need any specifics on this one. All right. So moving past that. So for me, I'm a Linux guy, right? I don't have any Windows here. None. Zero Windows, right? Would you recommend this to someone like me at this point, or is it, if you're a Linux person, should you wait? Should you kind of hold back and just wait and see how things go, or is it worth jumping in?
At this point, if you are going to be looking to run it in a full Linux environment, if you've already got the computer hardware that can run it, and you're kind of a techie nerd like me or yourself, Oculus at the very least. I think they've come down in price they're closing in on the $500 price point, which for a techie gadget, that's definitely within the realm of something that you can do.
I can find a way to
now
justify
Oculus is one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Oculus is still one that, on the Linux side's not really well supported, obviously. So there's a little unknown there. But yeah, if you can swing the Vive, there's definitely some experiences and things that I would recommend that you give it a shot. And it's also one of those things that even if there's the Windows side of things, and you have to do a dual boot just for some of those experiences, it's still worth it at this point.
It's so hard for me, man. I know. Most of my Linux loving friends, they at least dual boot, or they have like a Windows gaming machine off to the side or something. I can't do it, man. I can't.
Hey, it's getting easier. It's getting a lot easier. Like I said, Valve and the Steam platform, they're consistently developing for Linux. There's more and more titles that are cross-platform, Linux to Windows.
I like that. How about the Star Trek one? That's Windows only?
I think that's probably going to be a Windows only title, unfortunately. So it's kind of a bummer for us. But
I don't need the spiders. I need the Star Trek, man.
we believe in the technology, and we believe that there's going to be plenty of content creators and developers out there that can create some really awesome experiences, especially in the commercial space and the educational space, where Linux is going to be the way to do it, because they're going to want to deploy it, through school districts and things like that. And you can't deal with that licensing cost on the Microsoft side of things. So there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunities in the open source space for VR as we progress. I firmly believe that.
And if a lot of people are standardizing on Unity, that does make it a lot easier, because we've got Unity cross-platform. That helps a lot. Interesting. Coolest thing on Linux through the VR that you've seen? What's the thing? If someone is thinking, I want to check out the Vive, I want to possibly have it on my Linuxy machine, what's the shining thing?
I'm trying to remember. Let me see if I can look this up.
Question, spur of the moment, man. What? You don't have the entire Steam catalog memorized at all times? My goodness.
I don't.
What are you doing, man?
Let's see.
But yeah, because I was trying to think it through, because I don't know. For me, like, part of me digs the idea of VR tremendously, and part of me is terrified of it because I'm just sure it's going to make me throw up. And so it is a nerdy gadget. Like you want these nerdy gadgets. You don't want to not have them. If you have them and you're standing on the top of a mountain, I want to stand on the top of a mountain connected to my GTX card. That's just something I want to do. Yeah,
exactly. The best one is there's this one where you start on like a street corner, right? You got cars going by and trees and birds. You're like, oh, this is pretty nice. And you turn around, there's an open elevator door there. Oh, walk into the elevator. And you hit the top button on the elevator, and you get the elevator music, and you're just kind of hanging out in the elevator, and then the doors open, and you're looking at a wooden plank 40 stories up the side of a building.
What?
And you actually have to walk out on the plank.
What?
And yeah.
Who are these masochists making these VR titles? Holy moly, dude, that would make me freak out.
The best part of it, though, is if you get a wooden board, right? You go to Home Depot or whatever, you buy a wooden board. It's actually got a function where you lay that board on the ground, and then you take your Vive controllers and you measure the side and the length of the board, and it'll incorporate that into the game.
So you can feel it with your feet.
And you can actually feel it with your feet. And that makes it even better.
Have you done that? Oh no. Come back to me, Chris. Come back to me. There. Have you
there?
done? I'm there. I'm here.
Yeah.
Have you done the plank of wood? Have you done that?
I have. It definitely gives you a stomach sinking feeling. It's like that roller coaster feeling, because your brain's telling you it's really far down. The worst part is you can actually jump off the edge. And my brain, like, you're falling, and my brain was fine until right about the time you hit the pavement. And then my stomach just went into my throat. Just whoop.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm behind firmly. Star Trek bridge, yes. Stand on the top of a mountain and look around, I'm in. Fear of heights, fear of spiders, etc. Next thing you know, you're gonna have virtual reality locked in a coffin and dying. Like, it's like, I cannot. Like, how many fears can there possibly? They could possibly jam pack into something strapped to your face.
The scary titles are really bad too. They've got like I know on the PlayStation platform, you can get PlayStation VR. So that's another way. So if you've got, I forgot about that one. If you have PlayStation 4, you can get PlayStation VR, and there's a number of really good titles, including Star Trek Bridge Crew on PlayStation 4. So that's another way to do it if you're not looking to do that Windows platform. So
I know. I'm changing one closed platform for another, but it's just hard for me to use Windows.
I know.
It's hard.
But they've got the Resident Evil. I think they did Resident Evil in VR, and there's a number of scary VR titles. Where you're like walking down a dark corridor, and you look behind you, and there's nothing there, and then you look behind you again, and it's right there in your face. So it's just, there's a lot of scary stuff out there too.
Oh man, I'm getting old. Apparently, I can't handle the scary like I used to, man. I'm such a wuss. It's ridiculous. Okay. Let's kind of pull this back together. So I'm looking right now. So you guys have got a couple of machines going on. So if you were to put together a machine right now. Come on, internet. There you go. And I'm looking over, like, you guys have got your Tempest M2, right?
Yep.
Which is just a really cool little cube, which is nice. Here, I'll show you guys what I'm looking at here. It's a cool little cube. Looking down at it, so holy moly. There is the NVIDIA GeForce Titan XP, the 12 gigabyte craziness card. I wanted to ask you about that because that particular card is not exactly cheap. I believe it is a $1,000 some odd video card, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. What do you get with $1,000 some odd dollar video card? Like, I'm sure it's kick-ass. I've never had such a beast. And so I can't possibly imagine what it would give me. You know what I mean?
Yes. So the big thing on the Titan XP is obviously the memory count. I think it's got 11 gig of memory on it. And it also, I believe it actually technically is 2 GPUs on one board.
Oh,
so it's kind of like SLI, but on hardware. It's all built into a single card. So it's all done on the hardware side. You don't have to have the software to do it. The thing about the Titan XP is it is a very, very close alternative to the Quadro and Tesla products that are used with the GPU computing. Yeah. So we get a lot of our customers that are trying to do development for larger compute. But they don't want to drop the cash on a $5,000 card quite yet. So what's funny is that the $1,200 card is actually the cheap option to get into that realm versus the high-end option. So that's kind of the positioning on the Titan XP. Is it's really meant for those really high-end enthusiasts. But it is something that for some of the development applications, we've had some customers that have had huge success with that over just the 10 series cards, just because of the sheer throughput. So they can do the rendering and some of the compute all at the same time and produce some really cool simulation projects. So
that's kind of groovy. Okay.
That's why that's in there.
All right. That's groovy. I saw that one and I was like, oh, that's an expensive video card. You can convince me, hey, a couple $100 on a video card. Yeah. I get it, man. Not more expensive video card. Badass graphics. I'm in. As soon as it hits that $1,000 clock over point, immediately my heart stops beating for just 2 or 3 seconds. It's just like we're dead now because we can't possibly comprehend that expensive of a video card. But yeah, okay, that makes sense. So it's probably not a video card for me. It's a video card for someone else doing actual intense things. Got it.
Yeah. Like I said, the 1070 is a really good entry point for a lot of people, both on the development and just on the on the consumer side. All the mixed reality footage that we shot here on the screen that's up on our blog was done using a Tempest M2 with a 1070 and a Core i7. So that's actually the machine that's sitting right here in the lab that we use for most of our development research. So,
gotcha.
It's a great machine.
And that's let's see, that's the reality of VR for business video that you guys did.
Yep, that is the one.
Let me see if I've got that here. So I've got, okay, I'm going to switch over to that here just so people can see what this is here. Here we go. Yeah, so basically, yeah, a mixed reality inside their office where they're going around spray painting the walls and pretending to be on Mars, which is fairly delightful.
So yeah, that video kind of gives you an idea of some of the commercial applications for VR that a lot of people don't normally think about.
Yeah, that is actually kind of cool. That is pretty groovy. Yeah. All right. I need to give VR another chance. I mean, I'm going to take some Dramamine first, but I need to give it another chance. Clearly, this is
to the office, and we'll give you a go on our platform here.
Yeah, next time I'm up in Seattle, I'm going to come over to you guys' office, and you guys are going to just as long as there's no spiders or walking on a board 20 stories up. As long as we're not doing that, I'm in. And if you guys prank me on that, I'm angry. I'm going to go crazy. I'm just going to Hulk out and stuff's going to go flying. In part because it's an involuntary physical reflex. Don't have that look on your face, man. No. It's funny. The video froze with that, with you doing the I don't know look on your face for like 5 seconds. So it's great. I'll use that as the thumbnail for this video. All right. Is there anything
Are you there
else
now?
you'd like
I think
to tell
I
people? You back?
Yeah, I think I'm back now. This connection's been killing us this time.
It's all right. It's all right. It happens, man. Luckily, it freeze framed on the most adorable face you were making, where you were like, I don't know, maybe I will. So, is there anything you'd like to tell anyone that we missed? Is there any really cool thing that I haven't asked you about that's VR related at this point?
Not that comes to mind, but we're really open here. So if anyone's got questions, or they want to drop us an email, or check out the website, if they have any questions about the platforms that we develop for VR, we're always here to answer those questions, or help support any projects that people may be working on, or even if they're just curious, send us an email, and we'll try to give you any information that we can.
Nice. Well, dude, Chris, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
They're over at pogolinux.com. You can check them out. They're nice. They're nice people. They're good folks. Plus, they sponsor this show, so they have to be kind of cool, right? Anyway, I really appreciate it, man, because, this is probably the most discussion around VR I've had in my entire life, period. And it is amazing how much I've avoided it, and I probably shouldn't have.
You shouldn't. It's the future, man. It's going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people.
All right, I don't know if I'm ready to go for it's the future, man, because currently, from what I understand, there's too many spiders involved, but it does sound rad. I'll give you that.
Hey, just remember holosuites.
I do want a holosuite. That's a really good point.